actually reveal to you where my studio is today?
Yay!
Jump into the coach boat and they hug each other and they celebrate together because it's such a teamwork.
It's just that now we have to be super conscious that we're producing more waste, and we've got to be better at giving it a second use.
We were going to try and pledge to make these changes, and then we thought actually it'd be really cool if other athletes, other sailors could get on board to kind of leave no trace or leave wherever you've been cleaner than how you found it.
We are going to sail Port Stephens.
I think we pretty much cooked dinner for everybody.
Dennis Thompson is a PRO. Miss Stacey Jackson.
Yeah, do you think you could smuggle a sausage sandwich across the border for me?
Which of you was on board when this happened?
I was on the weather side of the boat going underwater, holding my breath. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I was on the leeward side of the boat getting blasted with water from behind. So
wasn't that the 47 knots, you guys?
Yeah.
It was a really good cause to cover all of those boats that don't normally get covered.
This is Nick Douglas for Adventures of a Sailor Girl, keeping you covered for your Rolex Sydney Hobart coverage.
If we don't have an equal education system for girls and boys, women will never be equal.
Girls have to look like this, be like that, be like this, do that. But when you're at sea, you don't have to wash, you don't have to dress properly, you don't have to do your hair. It sounds like being in lockdown.
I love it. I mean, seriously, I have washed my hair for you for the first time in a very long time. And
we could continue all night, I'm sure, hearing your beautiful stories and your memories. But again, I just want to reiterate, it's not 7 years that you've served your country or inspired others. It's definitely been a lifetime. And for me, before I was born. So
thank you, Nick. Thank you very much. And what you're doing is terrific for the sport and terrific for sailing. And as I said at the start of this little interview, this whole online thing is just a game changer. So I think it's really, really exciting.
I think you'll agree a fourth time is that it was so lovely to have you guys on the show tonight and to see you catching up and to reminisce about so many great times that you've been involved with. And thanks for everything that you've given to sailing. It's been amazing.
Thanks, Nick. You're doing a great job.
Doing my best.
Thank you, Nick.
Trying to follow in your footsteps.
2,000 participants.
2,000
overall.
participants. 29 people got it correct. What was the name of the New York Yacht Club defending boat in the 1887 America's Cup? And have a little bit of a think about the theme for this week. Was it A, Mayflower, B, Vigilant, C, Volunteer, or
It had to be
D?
volunteer, Nick.
Indeed!
I know you all weren't around when that race was held, but I was 14 years old in 1983 when Liberty lost to Australia 2. And what an incredible course that one race put on the America's Cup and really for our sport. And it's amazing. A couple of weeks ago, New York Yacht Club they released a 3-part series with Dennis. And Dennis was talking about that last day, and he was talking about the regatta. And, I think what I took away from it was he felt that they were lucky to get that far into the series and to get to a sudden death winner take all race, because he knew Australia 2 was a lot faster. And it's fascinating to hear, from those guys, the details of that race. And because it has so much history in our sport and everything, that it's awesome to listen to those just nuggets of absolute America's Cup gold. Yeah.
Like 2021, one hell of a year. So
yeah, absolutely. Be rude not to.
And I guess we'll see everybody in 2022.
Yes, we will.
Well, I hope before that, Nick.
Fingers crossed. Indeed, yeah, for sure. And I'm sorry.
Keep
I
up the
jinxed
good
you.
work, Nick. This is fantastic. Thank you
Oh,
for
thank you, Dave.
for everything
great job.
you do for the sailing community, keeping everybody informed and making it fun. So thank you.
Oh, I'm really lucky that it's such a great sport and that I'm able to have so many family members around the world. Basically, is how I feel, and I'm just trying to help my family. That's all. Very lucky. And here is about where I
Doing
would
a great
insert a
job.
clip of Seb and I doing the soaker in the backseat of Summer's car on the way to the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club. But I'll save
Yeah.
Seb the embarrassment. Welcome, everybody! Another week of Adventures Weekly. Week 18, actually, my lucky number. So very happy to be here. It is the third episode of Season 2. So far in Season 2, we've had Andrew Dog Palfrey and also Ian Big Fella Murray. Today's guest, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We'll get into that as quickly as possible. So for all you regulars who know how this runs, it's time for
Sailing News in 60 seconds-ish.
60 seconds-ish. Let's do our best. The Youth Olympic Games, which were set to be held in 2022 in Dakar, have been postponed to 2026. Very smart decision there. The Ocean Race have announced a 12-month postponement. They will now start in Alicante in October 2022. They haven't decided on a date yet, and finish in Genova, Italy, summer of 2023 to celebrate their 50th Jubilee. Very wise to make those decisions early. I really love this. Zyke, who you know I've been involved with previously, they have actually put out a weatherproof face mask. So I think this is quite cool, actually, to get on the bandwagon. And hey, I mean, we're not selling that much sailing gear at the moment, so good job, Zyke, on putting out a weatherproof face mask. The Kitefall World Series has been cancelled. Really sad to hear for 2020, but I'm sure they'll be back in 2021 like all of us. And the 2021 Flying 15 Worlds, which was set to be held at a Freshwater Bay Yacht Club over on the other side of our country, only 5,000 kilometres away, they have been postponed as well. So that will probably now happen in 2022. It depends on their cycle, I guess. Now, big news. The Vendée Globe, as we know, is still set to start on the 8th of November. We'll have to wait and see what happens. It looks like the Vendée Organising Committee have called up a press conference in a month's time. So I'm guessing they're going to make a decision either way. Meanwhile, Jérôme Bayot of Charal won the Vendée Arctic L'Essai Blanc d'Iran. So congratulations to him. And speaking of round the world voyages, now, it wasn't a race, but it was a race against herself and a race against records. The first woman to sail solo, non-stop and unassisted around the world. Our guest today, she's also a bit of a legend. It's Kay Cottee. Welcome.
Thanks, Nick.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Great to see you again. We did try to make this work last night, but our pesky country internet, because where are you?
I'm in
Yamba, and I'm in Milton, and we just couldn't make it click. So
no.
short postponement, so we could have a nice Friday night with our mates.
Yes, I'm sorry. I tried to do it from the boat, and we don't have good internet up here at all.
Yeah. Well, I can sympathise with you there, but what I might do actually, I can bring up a few pictures of your boat now instead of us actually being there. This is how beautiful it was. This was going to be your broadcasting studio. I mean, look at that.
Yeah, I ripped out most of the interior. I've got a Moody Eclipse 43.
Amazing.
And I had to replace the tanks and everything under the floor, so I ripped out most of the interior. And I love designing interiors of boats. So that's actually what I was going to do before I left. I had my first commission to design an interior of a boat, and it was Hammer of Queensland actually, and I'd done the initial rough sketches, and then I got my sponsorship and went on my trip. So I did go aboard the boat after I got back, and I saw that they followed roughly my sketches. They're pretty rough sketches, I've got to say.
How cool, though. So you've always had a love of boats. I think a lot of people don't know that you came from a sailing family as well. Your dad was a sailor.
Yeah, Dad was a sailor. He built a boat in our backyard when I started when I was 5 and finished when I was 7.5. So I was always in the workshop playing with tools and getting into trouble.
And today, You loved that we reset the time to 10 a.m. because you were meant to be helping your son sand his boat.
Yes, my son pulled a little surprise on his father and I, and he went and bought an old, very old Hood 20
Oh my
trailer
gosh.
trailer. And I've spent the last 3 or 4 weeks working on it with him. I thought I was over the fiberglass itch, I've got to tell you. I'm too old for it.
Oh.
And crawling around underneath the trailer, grinding out osmosis and everything. So it's going to be the perfect Hood 20 when it's finished, I can tell you.
Oh, I bet. I'm just looking at another photo of your boat here. Will you do the interior of the hood? I mean, this is your boat. Look at that.
Not quite like that. Not quite like that.
The cabinetry.
I love making room, and that actually, where that seat is, was a big bench going right out into the saloon, and the navigation station went right up a lot higher, so you couldn't see out from the galley, which is just down below behind that.
Yeah.
And also, I think that when people design interiors of boats, in yachts in particular, medium-sized yachts, they put in dinettes, and you spend maybe an hour a day sitting at the table eating a meal. And I always am of the opinion you want a lounge area rather than a dinette. A lounge that can convert to eating area, dining area, or a sleeping area if you need it. And so boats I've built have always been built around the lounge.
Yep, which makes sense because
these are cruising boats, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you don't spend that much time in your kitchen at home, so it really doesn't make sense.
Well, not in the kitchen. I'm talking about when you sit down to have a meal. I mean, you want to sit down and relax and have a drink with your mates. You don't want to sit up like a stuffed dummy at a table that's up under your chest and things. So, First Lady would have lounge bunks in the saloon.
Oh my gosh, First Lady. Let me see if I've got a little picture of her here. I think I've got a glamour of you actually on here. That's of her in the museum.
Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful. I think what we might do, Kate, we're going to have a little bit of a look for those who are watching and maybe don't know your history. What we might do is put on a video that the ABC have given to me, which they got ready for the Australian of the Year Awards. You were the Bicentennial Australian of the Year in 1988 to celebrate your 189 days at sea. So let's have a little bit of a look. We'll have a bit of a look at this amazing video, and thanks to the ABC.
Mum and Dad, they were totally taken aback when I said what I'm aiming for is to be the first woman to sail single-handed non-stop around the world. And they were both speechless for a bit, and then they started with their questions. Finally, they said, OK, and my little Nan, who gets seasick, looking at boats, said, I'll leave her alone. I reckon she can do it. I just didn't have a clue. In my mind, it was like looking down a tunnel, and there was happiness, and there was tears, and there was absolute terror. The worst night in the entire voyage was off the Cape of Good Hope, which is known as the Cape of Storms, actually.
It was blowing up to 50, gusting 60, and I've had an hour and a half leap in 3 days.
Totally out of control with no sails up. And I nearly lost my life 3 times that night. And I can tell you, your life does flash before your eyes. It's amazing. But I survived it, and I would do it again at the drop of a hat.
She finally sailed into the history books just after 12:30.
When I got back, I actually said to my girlfriend, what are all these people doing here? Because as we went into Darling Harbour, there were hundreds of thousands of people. And she said, they're here for you, you idiot. And I just started to cry. I said, what do I do? What do I do? And she said, just wave. So that's what I did.
The 1988 Australian of the Year is Kay Cottee.
It was announced at a lunch on Australia Day that I was the Bicentennial Australian of the Year, and still couldn't believe at that moment, even when I was presented with the award by Bob Hawke, I couldn't believe I was the one that was chosen to be Australian of the Year.
Humbled and bewildered by this great honour that's been bestowed upon me today by the country that I love so much.
A big thanks to ABC for sharing that with me. Kay, a few memories?
Nearly made me cry.
I cried when I first saw it yesterday, so it's all good. We're even. But a pretty magical experience, and I love that you just went, this is my goal. I'm going to sail around the world, non-assisted, solo, and you did it. There's a lot of people who make a goal but never actually bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, pretty single-minded. You'd have to say, when I decide to do something, I usually do it.
Mm. And I guess your poor dad, I actually have something here for you. So I had a bit of a chat to Marcus Blackmore yesterday. I did. And so he sent me a few words, and I found this really interesting. And he said, where is it? Okay, so basically, when you wanted to actually name your boat after your dad, there was no way he could say no. But Marcus said that your dad was like, you have to stop her. You can't let her do this. This is ridiculous. How can you be supporting my daughter to do this? And he said, well, she's very single-minded. She's going to do it anyway. We may as well support her to the best of our ability. And that's why he supported you, which I found absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, he was a wonderful support. Absolutely wonderful.
So
yeah, he's one of my greatest friends. He's a funny bugger. He's just getting a new boat, and I'm hopefully, depending on COVID, going to help deliver his new boat from Cape Town to Fremantle and round to Sydney.
Amazing.
In September, but it'll depend on borders and things like that.
And whether you can get in and out. You might end up having to do your 2 weeks quarantine in Fremantle in the marina on a beautiful boat.
We'll have to do it in South Africa as well.
Oh, golly.
My mother's still alive, and she's 96 and a half, and she's up here with me in Yamba, so I don't know about being away for a couple of months, really.
Yeah, that's fair too. It's been a very interesting year this year. I mean, talking about sailing solo around the world, and we've had a whole heap of people struggling with being locked down.
I know. I love it.
Me too.
I absolutely love it. Because I can go between home and my boat and potter on my boat. And the marina, Peter and I and some friends own Yamba Marina. And the marina's classed as an essential service, so we've been open the whole time.
Perfect.
But and it's been incredibly busy, and all the boats have been stacked up here waiting for the Queensland border to open. And then it was an absolute mass exodus for them to all go. They were anchored all over the Clarence River, waiting for the border so they could go up north. And that happened last week.
Bye. Back to quiet.
No, it's not quiet. It's still very, very busy.
Oh my gosh, really? Probably why your marina internet was not so good last night on the Wi-Fi. The cord is good.
No, I wasn't using the internet for the marina because I was out on my boat.
So good. Yeah, and for those who may have just joined us, Kay Cottee and I just having a bit of a yarn. So Marcus said, so he's decided to support you. You have then said, I want to name my boat after my dad, even though the boat was sponsored by Blackmore. So most people call it First Lady Blackmore's, but it's actually named Jim McLaren. That's
Jimmy
interesting.
Mac.
Jimmy Mac?
Cool.
Yeah.
That came about when I was sitting around having drinks with friends. We were sitting on the boat in the backyard of the garden flat where I was building First Lady. And I remember we had a resin drum as a table and we're all sitting in the cockpit and the boat was in pieces, and I said, I'm trying to decide on the name. And one of my friends, I said, I'd like to call it after my father, saying he got me into sailing. And one of my friends said, what's his name? And I said, James John Daniel McLaren. And he said, Jimmy Mack.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think we're very lucky. I've spoken to a few women about it as well. It's interesting who enabled us effectively to be able to get involved with sailing. And for a lot of us, it is our fathers. I'm the same. My dad and I have raced together for 25 years. So it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, well, I was the youngest of 4 girls, and we always did the harbour races out of the CYC. So I was at the CYC before there was a proper clubhouse even. So, and there used to be the boat crew because Dad had a seabird, Alan Payne seabird that he built in the backyard, and he would race every Sunday in the winter series and offshore, and there'd always be Mum and the 4 of us girls.
So cool. I'm the eldest of 3, so similar. It's really cool how it happens. I think I ended up being the boy, but that's okay. I'll take that.
Same. I was the last and I wanted a boy.
I'm first, and so it can go either way. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. And something else Marcus told me, so he said he remembers you crewing for him in a Lord Howe race. The weather was absolutely stinking, and Kay was down below cooking up a storm. I asked her, what the hell are you doing? The rest of the crew were all spewing their guts up, and there was no way they were going to eat anything anyway. And he said that from that trip, that's when he had every confidence that you would be totally fine to go around the world and look after yourself.
Yeah, that was very funny, actually. I said I'd only go as cook on his boat. And when we got to Lord Howe, I went in to get dressed. I did another race up to Mooloolaba with him once, and I came out just as we were going to Mooloolaba dressed in high heels and my handbag and everything like this, and said, right, I'm ready. And the crew thought that was hysterical. But then when we got to Lord Howe, I think there was about 8 guys and myself, and I went to the loo and came out, and they were all sitting around the saloon waiting for their meal because I said I'm going to dish out dinner now, and they're all sitting around and they all had chef's hats on, the really good high chef, and they said, we've decided we're all going to be the cook, you can be the crew.
Up you went, solo.
Yeah, that's right. It was very funny.
Oh, it's good. The banter is very strong. I love that. And so, I mean, doing your solo around the world race, obviously there's no banter. How did you keep yourself focused, or do you just love being alone that much?
I enjoy being alone. I talk to myself, obviously. I talk to my Teddy, bashed his ear a lot on the trip. I had the radio. I could talk. There were no satellite communications in those days, and no GPS or sat-navs and things. So I used to talk on the 2-way radio to Roger Badham and Derek and Janine Barnard from Penteconstat. I don't know if you remember them. They used to be the radio base for virtually everybody in Australia and half the world. And so I used to talk to them when I could get through. Sometimes, and I also talked to Mum and Dad because they were living on their boat at the CYC at the time.
Oh,
and just before I left, I installed a brand new radio that was the same as First Lady's, which was one of the very first computerised radios, so you could program in any frequency for anywhere in the world, and it was pretty amazing. And Mum used to get on the radio and flatten my batteries if she could keep me talking. And I realised that I used to get a bit short with her, and she'd be telling me stories about people I couldn't care. And then I realised after I said over and out one night, the reason she kept me talking was because she didn't know if she'd ever hear from me again. So I let her flatten my batteries a bit more often then.
Yeah, that must have been hard for a mum, and now you are a mum as well. Can you imagine one of your kids going off to do something similar?
Yeah, well, my boy is not been that interested in sailing. I mean, I used to take him out sailing before he could walk in the laser. We lived on Pittwater, and I put a bit of water in the laser, and he'd just sit in the cockpit and splash around. And then when he was 9 months old, he started running. So he used to run around the foredeck of the laser when I'd take him out sailing, which was very funny. He still amuse everybody we passed. And then he went off and did things like rock climbing and mountain biking and all those scary things that I wouldn't even think about.
Yeah.
And I started to think, well, okay, I was just as bad in my own way, so he's going to do what he's going to do.
Better to support them, apparently.
I think so.
Oh my gosh, I think I've just got some more words from, I got an essay. We had a phone conversation and then he sent me like a big, Marcus, a big summary. Yeah, he messaged that Eric and Janine Bernard, who were monitoring your voyage, they said that you basically had a journey plotted so that if you lost communication for some reason, they'd be able to work out whether you were okay or not. That's very clever.
Yeah, I worked that out with John Biffin, who's, I think he went to kindergarten with Marcus. He's one of Marcus's oldest friends, and he's also a great mate of mine. And he was in charge of all the safety gear and the charts. And First Lady we had to get it specially from France. It was the very first beacon, and it was a sealed unit on the deck, and it would send a signal to a satellite of the boat's position, and then that would be sent to France, and then France would telex Blackmore's with the boat's position. Now I say telex, there was no emails or anything like that, no web or anything. And so Biff and I sat down and we worked out if something went wrong, say I lost my rig, but I was going to rig a jury rig and keep going or whatever, I'd sail in certain directions. I'd have a rough idea because Roger Badham did the weather.
Yep.
You must know Roger.
Clouds, he's a legend.
It's funny as a hatful. Anyway, Clouds did the weather and we worked out I'd sail, say, 4 days in that direction and then 4 days in another direction. And there were different sequences for different things that would possibly go wrong. So if the radio just went out for example and everything was okay, I'd do some pattern or whatever. Didn't have to use it though, luckily.
And then, so Captain Biffin of Sydney Harbour Pilots, and then Marcus said the irony of all this was that AMSA, the Australian Maritime Safety Authority, asked you to write an introduction to their safety brochure they were doing, not really thinking that by sailing alone you were going to break every single safety regulation in the sun.
That was after I got back. They asked me to do that. So anyway, I did that, but I think it was quite strange. They were a wonderful help. Biff and I actually flew down to Canberra and discussed the maritime safety regulations in all the countries I was going to sail past.
Yeah.
And find out. And I think they had a fair idea that we were pretty serious and we had an idea of what we were doing, really. And no, they were great support.
I love the story about when you came into Sydney Harbour and the quarantine customs vessel comes alongside. Yeah, tell me about that. I think it's amazing.
Well, my passport was stamped Sydney, leaving Sydney, and I'd never really been overseas before, so it had nothing else in it. It was a new passport. And when I got back, they were the first mob to come alongside, and there was about 3 or 4 of them. They jumped on and I said, we've already spoken to everybody. Marcus had spoken to everybody, all the officials, and they said they didn't need to come on. And anyway, they came on and had a look around and filled out a form or whatever and stamped my passport Sydney, and off they got. And I found out later, I bumped into one of them at a talk or something I was doing somewhere or other, and this guy said, "Oh, I was one of the guys that got on your boat." And I said, "Well, how mean was that? No one else was allowed to get on, and you guys weren't supposed to get on, you know." And he said, "Yeah, but the boss thought it would be a great thing to do, and he asked us who'd like to get on." And after that, I was really angry.
Yeah, I reckon. So Marcus said when he was on the phone to them trying to organise it, they're like, "Yeah, but where is she stopped?" And Marcus is like, "Hey, mate, the whole world knows she hasn't stopped. She's gone non-stop."
That's exactly right. That's what he kept saying. But they just ignored all that. Anyway, so I had my passport, which all it had in it was Sydney, stamp, left Sydney, arrived Sydney.
So good. I love that. And here's a beautiful shot of you with your mum and dad, with the cop boat in the background.
Yeah.
It must have been amazing to see them, and for your mum, I mean, I guess going, okay, it's all right, we believe in her, but we're worried, and then you came home. It must have been blissful.
Yeah, they were great support.
Yeah, I bet.
Before I left, and after I got home, it was a bit difficult because I was just travelling non-stop. I mean, I hadn't been overseas before I left, and when I got home, I was overseas 11 times in the first 12 months.
Wow.
Because I was doing motivational speaking all over the world, which was an amazing experience too.
Oh, it must have been phenomenal, and so many people. I've got comments coming up on the social media stream of people saying, "I was there watching. My mum was jumping up and down when you finished. You were such an inspiration." So you're not something that will go by in history. I remember you saying when I wanted to organise this, "Are people still interested?" I'm like, yes.
It was 32 years ago.
I know, but it's still nice. I think especially in a year like this where everyone's feeling like you do at the end of a dream, where you're trying to find your next goal and you're wondering if things will ever change. Will you get over this hurdle? And
yeah. So... I think the lockdowns and the COVID has made people realise how fragile life is, really. I think it's a lot of people, selfish people that aren't following the rules, but the people that are, I think, are fantastic.
Yeah.
Following the rules. And I also would like to ask people, if they're happy by themselves like I am, you've got to think of your neighbours and everybody else. You know, just give them a call or shout over the fence or give different friends a call, because there are people that are isolated and it's really bad. They don't have people calling them, and I think people have got to reach out. Even though you're locked up, you've got to reach out to other people and help other people.
For sure. I'm more introverted than people would think, so I've been quite good. But then sort of went, well, what can I do? So we started doing this show, and now we're up to week 18. But extroverts don't really know how to reach out when they get into that zone, because they go, oh, okay, and they get energy from other people, so they end up with no energy. So whereas you and I are probably like, woo, 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 I'm full, let's go. So share the energy around.
I think you should.
Yeah.
You should. Well, there's a lot of lonely people out there suffering badly because they can't even go to the shops and walk around and at least see other people. So
which is
make an effort and reach out to people, I say.
I think that's a great idea. And even though you really enjoyed being at sea for 189 days, you shared your energy with everybody for those years following, which was amazing. Any really cool people that you met that you remember?
Oh, it's amazing people. I had dinner with a couple of American presidents. I had lunch with the Queen and Andrew on Fergie. Had lunch with Edward Heath.
Wow.
I don't know, dinner with Maggie Thatcher.
Oh, that's a winner.
That was very funny. That was very funny. I was totally speechless when she ran it up to me and just said, "Now tell me about your voyage." I couldn't speak because I didn't expect her to come straight up to me. And I said, I had a really nice time.
All right. So many
It was pretty
memories.
scary for someone who was pretty shy and didn't get out much.
Yeah. That's very cool. And you went from not having gone anywhere to sailing around the world and then meeting everyone and sharing your story. And for you, I guess, when you were finishing, you're like, what is this? I mean, I just did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah, I did part of it, but when I got back, Marcus Blackmore and I had the goal to raise $1 million for life education.
Yeah, which is
And
amazing.
when I got back, there was only like 30,000 in the kitty because most people didn't expect me to come back. And Marcus said, "What do you want to do now?" And I said, "I'd like to keep raising funds." So he sponsored me, or Blackmore sponsored me, for the next couple of years to travel around the country and raise funds for life education. And we reached $1 million in, I think it was December 91, we reached for life education. So that was another experience. Travelling around the country was fabulous. Going to every outback town and all over the place. It was just, the people I met were just incredible.
So brilliant. Yeah, Marcus said, for her amazing achievement, Kay became Australian of the Year presented by Bob Hawke, and Kay received an AO in the same year. She went on with the help of Blackmores and Rotary to raise $1 million for life education, the anti-drug program started by Rev Ted Noffs at the Wayside Chapel at King's Cross for our school children. And that's how he finished his massive essay. Obviously exceptionally proud of that part.
He loved to chat.
Yeah, I love a chat too. So it's totally fun. I'm going to get him on the show one week too. So more recently, he said 2 years ago, you again crewed for him on board his Southern Win 82 in the Arc race. And yeah, and you shared your watch with Rafa. Hilarious. That must have been fun.
That was a great trip. There was there were Italian, French, Dutch, Aussies, Spanish, and there was Marcus, Biff and I. Marcus had the cabin forward and Biff and I shared a cabin, and it was very funny. We just had a lot of laughs, and every now and again the crew would pop in and sit in our cabin because we're always laughing. I think and we always had a supply of chocolate.
Winning.
So different ones of the crew would pop in for a chat and a laugh. And, that was fantastic.
Yeah, so hopefully.
And at the end of the race, it was amazing. We got into this tacking duel right at the very end in the night. And I think we won by a couple of seconds. It was just pretty extraordinary after crossing the ocean.
Isn't it amazing? I see it so many times following races around the world, how boats can start in one destination, get to another destination and still be there, fighting it out. Oh,
I know. I remember the Hobart race that you filmed, not last year, before, I think. And you were filming it, and we were sitting there going, yes, and it was the tacking build at the end. And
unbelievable.
Your feed dropped out.
Oh, no.
Because someone cut your line or something.
Yes, Channel 7. So that was 2017. It was Comanche and Wild Oats up the doing.
Yeah, that's right. And I rang Channel 7 and complained.
Yes, because they have this blocker thing. So if you get too close to their camera when they go live, and they've gone live, 30 seconds before they're about to finish, and I've been live for 3 hours.
I know. I've been watching.
Amazing. It happened last year as well with Scallywag in Wild Oats 11. It's just crazy. I saw it at the end of the Fastnet last year. Marcus de Rothschild and the one with Frank Hamas and Charles Quadrelia and Jimmy Spittle was on the other one, and the massive maxi trimarans, and they've been apart and they finished within 2 inches.
Oh, that is scary. They're scary boats.
They're so scary. I mean, at least yeah, exactly. I mean, but speaking of scary, I mean, when you did your voyage, I've seen things that have said you almost died 3 times. You know, you rolled the boat. Marcus said that Johnny Denton, shout out to Johnny Denton, built your mast, and he was ordered to build the mast so the boat could roll 3 times and it would still be standing. Craziness.
Yeah. It didn't roll right round. I didn't do a 360, luckily.
Yeah.
But got knocked flat and pushed along in the breakers on a side many times. Yeah.
I have a mortal fear of breaking waves, for good reason, I think.
I did. The last time I was knocked flat was the scariest thing was after the arc race with Marcus. I helped deliver his boat across the Pacific. So we went through, this is the Southern Wind 82, we went through the Panama Canal, we went to Galapagos, the Marquesas, the Tuamotus, and I was supposed to get off, I think, in the Marquesas, but there was an airline strike in the Marquesas. So I had to stay on the boat, and we went to the Tuamotu Islands, and then we went to Tahiti.
Oh, beautiful.
And somewhere along the way, there was a pretty big storm hit us, and the boat got knocked flat.
Far out.
And I was in a boat, and you're talking about a boat that big.
Yeah. That's frightening.
So it was pretty scary. But anyway, I rushed up on deck, and it was okay. I was used to walking on the sides of the cupboards in First Lady, but I got used to walking on the sides of the face of the cupboards on First Lady. But when you're running down, walking on the side of the fridge in an 82-footer, that was scary.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, this one on its side is sort of like a dinghy in comparison.
Yeah.
Far out.
Yeah. I remember Marcus being rather cross. He wasn't on board, by the way.
Thank goodness.
He would have been thrown out of his bunk. Not a happy man.
No. There would have been a lot of chocolate required after that.
Yeah.
So good. And here we have First Lady at the museum, and you actually got involved with the Border Museum, and you've been helping out at the Australian National Museum, not recently, but you did for quite a number of years.
Yeah, I was on the board for 5 years.
Yep.
And then I was appointed chairman for 6 years. And that was an amazing, here again, amazing people you meet. And it was a great achievement to help support it when it just opened. And I remember there was a Labor government, I won't mention who, and a Labor state government, Liberal federal, and we're the only federal organisation outside of Canberra like that. And they're renting a building for all of the administration and conservation and everything just up the road. But then the Star Casino was coming in, so the rent was going to go through the roof, and so the government said, well, you'll have to go and rent somewhere out near Parramatta or somewhere where it's cheaper. You can't do that to a maritime museum where you've got to have all the staff and everything close. So I just went hell for leather to try and get Wharf 7, which was going to be sold by the state government to private enterprise. And Wharf 7 was, as you know, right alongside the National Maritime Museum.
Yeah.
So And the staff and the board I had at the time was sensational. And we went hell for leather to get that. And eventually got the Labor state government to sell it to us. I think we had to pay $4.5 million. And we wanted to build a building on it. But the feds wouldn't give us any money, of course. And we worked out we could borrow the money and build a building with an extra floor on it, and we could lease that floor, and that would pay off the whole loan in 10 years. And then the museum would be set up for life, and it would also have room for expansion, or it'd have place that could be rented and get an income when things are tight, like they are now for all the institutions around Australia. Yeah. And we went to the feds and said we want to borrow, I think it was $19.5 million we needed, and they said no. And we said, well, we'll go private, and they said no institution in this country has ever borrowed privately, from a bank, God forbid. Anyway, it went on, and we were really stuck. And so I rang the finance minister at the time, who was John Fay, and I said, John, I'm going to tell you a story. And I told him about the museum, and we got the building, and we could build it, and it would be all paid off in 10 years, and the government wouldn't have to pay rent forevermore for all of the administration and the conservation, everything like that. And he said, that's a great idea. What's your problem? And I said, your department won't let us borrow the money. And he said, I'll fix that. And he did. And he fixed it. So we borrowed, and that's, I don't know, it might be 20 years ago now. They've had the income from, massive income from a whole floor of the building. And they've moved in. And also we got Sydney Maritime Museum, who's now called Sydney Heritage Fleet. We got them to come into the new space, and they share the museum with us.
So nice.
I thought they were going to be there for a while.
And that building now is where we saw the inaugural induction to the Australian Sailing Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's when I last saw you, which was fantastic. And upstairs, I think Google's renting. That works.
Oh, is it? It used to be Foxtel.
Yeah.
Foxtel was there for years. So it's a fabulous spot.
Oh, it's such a great spot.
So that gives the museum an income for acquisitions and things like that, and to look after their fleet.
So good. I love that museum. I really do. I used to actually work weddings at that venue when I was in uni, which was really fun. Because I'd be like, break, and run into the museum, which was really cool. I used to MC and do music and stuff at weddings, and that venue was one of mine.
And I had Lee, I remember a funny story, Vicky in Tiernan was on the board, and they built a new boardroom in the new building, not that one, in the original, when they were building the original building.
Yeah.
And it was like the Cutty Sark's boardroom. And I got to say, when I was in England, I was lucky enough all those years ago to have dinner on board the Cutty Sark in the officers' mess. And no one had eaten in there since, and that was with Naomi James and a couple of other people. And no one had eaten in there since it was a sailing ship. So, that was amazing. But anyway, I'm waffling now.
No, it's all right. So many memories. I feel like we don't have enough time for all of your memories. And I love Marcus said you didn't even pass English in your high school exams, but you've now written 2 books, one about the actual voyage, one about your life afterward. It's pretty special.
Yeah, I did have trouble. I still do have trouble. I'm ADHD, as you probably can gather.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? What was your first hint?
No, I think people who are ADHD are very gifted people because they are able to make a goal and go for it, which is amazing. So if you can be that one-minded about a goal.
I think also they don't see obstacles and it's so one-sided. And if they decide to do something, I do all sorts of things. I call myself jack of all trades, master of none.
I say that I'm very good at a few things and I'm not going to do anything else.
I wish I could do the same.
Oh no, I'm someone. I've always got stuff going on. I got new colouring pencils from my mum yesterday because I always draw when I've got a bit of time, which helps me think and focus. Yeah, and I know you're a bit of an artist too. And you're a bit of an artist too, aren't you?
Yeah, I paint and sculpt and I sew. I just sewed a dummy bimini for my boat to see what it looked like in a scooter. You know Scooter from Scooter Sales?
Yeah.
Well, he operates out of the marina and I put all the stainless piping together. I gathered all these pipes and bends and what have you and put it all together and I built this giant bimini and I thought before I use the real cloth, because I've got a mini sailmaker's machine because I love sewing.
Awesome.
And I got all these scraps of blue canvas stuff that I had laying around and I made a dummy bimini to see if it was going to be too big or if I liked the shape of it or whatever. And Scooter walked past the other week and looked at it and said, not bad, interesting mix of fabrics.
Just like a collage.
Oh, well, I had to tell him it was just a dummy one. Yeah. I didn't have any florals in it. It was all plain blue.
It's fine. No, that's good. It's nice. It's nice to recycle things. I think that's really, really lovely. So, it's you mentioned the Kay Sutton before because you were the first Australian recipient of the Kay Sutton medal from the Duke of Edinburgh, which is pretty cool. So it must have been nice to have that full circle as well to get the medal and then be on board. I wonder how many people have actually done that.
I don't know. I don't know that anybody has dined on this since. So yeah. I think I'm incredibly lucky.
And won the medal.
And that was the night before that they closed the Kay Sutton for the day, and they put on a lunch, and all these amazing people were there, and the lunch was with the Duke of Edinburgh. And
it's so amazing.
He presented the award then. So.
Far out. So many memories. We'll have to definitely read your book and get a few more of them. So I'll read you one last thing from Marcus and we'll have a little bit of a chat about that. So basically here are the facts. This is not from Marcus. So on 5th of June, you were greeted by more than 100,000 well-wishers, which is pretty incredible. You'd sailed 22,100 nautical miles at an average speed of 117 nautical miles per day. So for non-sailors, that's about 200 kilometres. As part of the sponsorship, we heard that you actually named the boat after your dad. And then he actually mentioned that you were really close to his mum. But and you guys were really super close, but she unfortunately passed away whilst you were at sea. But then you did something pretty special once you'd finished, which was really nice. So he said one of his favourite memories was actually taking her ashes out on First Lady and scattering them. Yeah.
We did. We took the ashes out. She gave me a ring. That good luck, and I wore it on my neck. You could see it on my neck when I got back in, hanging on a chain. And when I got back, we went out. I took a family. I was very close to Marcus's sister as well, Darlene. She was a great friend, and her and her family and the kids and everything went out on First Lady, and we scattered Marcus's mother's ashes out there, and then we all had flowers, so we threw lots of flowers around, and and just drifted around, and the boat drifted around in a circle. So it was just around the flowers, which was pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So many memories. Marcus also said to tell you that he's going sailing today, so he'll be sailing right now, actually. He's out training on his MC38. They've got a regatta next weekend.
Okay. He's got that many boats. I can't keep up with his boats.
Yeah, I'm going to touch base with him next Saturday at Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club, do a few interviews for the Sydney to Auckland race, which should happen next year. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's going to happen with the America's Cup?
Oh, golly.
Is that still happening?
As far as everyone's concerned, here you go. You heard it here first. Sailing news in 60 seconds extended. As far as everybody's concerned, they've now worked out how to get people involved with the regatta in to New Zealand. They have to apply for every single person that they're bringing in, and all of those people have to quarantine for 2 weeks at their expense in a New Zealand hotel. So the American Magic team should be done any day now, because they're hoping to be on the water in the next 2 days. So they'll be the first there, and followed by Ineos, and the last team to come in will be Prada. Anybody else who's coming, it could be somewhat limited if they're outside of the Trans-Tasman bubble, if we can sort out this Victorian issue and New Zealand actually wants to let us in.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. It is really different. I was meant to be going to Tokyo this week, and a lot of people who were meant to be heading there. So it's a very odd feeling going, I'm going to do this, and then it just being taken out of your hands.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
I know. I just keep thinking all the time. I just suddenly think, well, I can't do that. I think, I'll go and see my mum. And I can go and see her. I can have a cup of tea sitting outside the building and talking to her through a window. But
yep.
Weirdest Mother's Day ever. Locked in for months, and no one can give anybody hugs.
No, I know what you mean about your mum. My mum's mum, we had Mother's Day outside her window. Hello. Happy Mother's Day.
You feel like a performing clown.
Yeah, we've all turned into mime artists, you know. Oh, golly. Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you go, Kay. As much as I wish that I could chat to you all day, it's been absolutely phenomenal. I'm just going to run through some of the social media comments for you. Oh, one of them's hilarious. You must be stoked to have your name in a Midnight Oil song.
I can't find that song. People have said that before.
I'm going to message and say, what song she wants to know. There you go. We're going to find it. I'll send you that song. If anybody knows what song it is who's watching, send it to me. I'll send you a prize. That can be the weekly competition prize for this week. I usually do a trivia competition, but I wanted to talk to you about all of it rather than do trivia. Pardon?
What are your prizes? I'll donate a book to someone.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
It has to be, not this question, it'll have to be a good one.
Okay, cool. Well, I will do my trivia competition this week then, and if you've watched the show, you'll know, because it will be based on Kay Cottee's amazing sailing career, and we might donate a book for that. But if somebody can tell me who or what the song was, here we go, we've got it. King of the Mountain, it's called. Thank you, Craig Weaver. I will send you a Pantaneous prize pack. It's a wet bag, a big wet bag. They're pretty cool, actually. I'll show you. Hang on. Yeah. It's a wet bag. Look, it's a glamour.
Oh, that's good.
It's bigger than me. A wet bag and a whole bunch of other goodies. A water bottle, like this. We like our non-single-use plastic peoples.
Yeah.
But King of the Mountain, I'll send it to you, Kay. What a glamour. Thank you, Craig Weaver. Absolutely love it. Yeah, so many people just saying where they were and what they were doing when you finished the race. So still pretty special, even though you didn't think so.
Still don't.
That's not true. Do you ever visit? First Lady? Do you miss her?
I do visit now and again if I get a chance. And what I try and do is just, one of the conditions that First Lady went to the museum was that people had to be able to go on board because that story, rather than just a static stand there and look at it. And so every now and again, if I am down there and it's quiet, I'll go and sit on First Lady by myself.
Oh, yeah. I think people who don't get sentimental about their boats haven't spent enough time on their boat.
No. No.
Oh, God.
No, I'd take it back in a minute, a heartbeat, really.
Yeah. Well, at least if the museum ever has to move her on, they'll know where to send her.
It's written into the contract.
Perfect. I love it. A girl after my own heart. That's fantastic. Well, if you just stay on the line, Kay, I'll catch up with you once we go off air. But to everybody, thank you so much for joining us for the 18th episode of Adventures Weekly. We've got a whole bunch of amazing women coming up in the next few weeks. I'm going to do a bit of a focus on Sailor Girls, continuing our theme of those sailing diehards that are amongst us doing great things to continue the passion of our sport, which we just love. So see you all next week, Friday night. And I'll also be at the RPA on Saturday. I haven't been back to Sydney. I've not been in Sydney since mid-March because I've been locked down, seriously, down here on the South Coast. I'll be at the RPA on Saturday and I'll be at the CYC on Sunday. So looking forward to seeing everybody next weekend. Bye. Thank you, Kay.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.